The moment you announce your plan, you begin competing against forces you cannot see. This is not superstition. This is the predictable response of human psychology to information that threatens existing hierarchies. People react to stated intentions before those intentions become reality. They position themselves to benefit from your success or protect themselves from your advancement. They calculate how your achievement might diminish their relative status. Most do this without conscious awareness, which makes their responses more dangerous, not less. The person who declares they will start a business faces immediate questions about market viability, competition, and execution capability. The individual who announces their intention to lose weight receives unsolicited advice about realistic expectations and past failures. The professional who mentions their promotion aspirations suddenly finds themselves under increased scrutiny at work. These responses appear supportive on the surface. Underneath, they serve a different function. They re-establish the existing order by reminding the ambitious person of obstacles, limitations, and the low probability of success. They create psychological pressure that makes follow-through more difficult rather than easier. This dynamic operates independently of the relationships involved. Close friends, family members, and colleagues all participate in this unconscious resistance to declared change. The resistance often intensifies with the closeness of the relationship because personal advancement by someone nearby creates more direct status implications. Watch how this unfolds in professional environments. The employee who announces their intention to pursue an advanced degree suddenly faces comments about the demands of their current role, questions about their commitment to the team, an increased workload that makes studying practically difficult. These obstacles emerge organically from a system protecting itself against disruption. The individual who quietly enrolls in classes and completes coursework without announcement encounters far less resistance. Their colleagues cannot mobilize against a threat they do not perceive. By the time the degree is completed and new opportunities emerge, the organizational dynamics have already shifted to accommodate the new reality. This pattern reveals something fundamental about how human social systems maintain stability. Information about potential changes triggers defensive responses designed to preserve existing arrangements. The earlier this information becomes available, the more time the system has to generate counterpressure. Most people underestimate how quickly information spreads through social networks and how predictably that information generates resistance. The colleague who mentions your career ambitions to others frames those ambitions through their own perspective, often emphasizing elements that seem unrealistic or problematic. Military strategists understood this principle centuries ago. Surprise attacks succeed not just because they catch enemies unprepared, but because they eliminate the opportunity for defensive countermeasures to develop. The same logic applies to personal and professional advancement in competitive environments. The psychology behind this resistance operates through several mechanisms. People project their own limitations onto others' aspirations. When someone announces an ambitious goal, listeners mentally catalog their own failed attempts at similar objectives. This creates unconscious resentment that manifests as discouraging advice or skeptical questioning. Social groups also maintain their coherence through shared identity markers. When a member signals intention to transcend the group's typical achievement level, they threaten the group's collective self-concept. The group responds by emphasizing obstacles, past failures, and the value of contentment with current circumstances. There is also a competitive element that operates below conscious awareness. Others' success makes one's own achievements appear less impressive by comparison. This creates subtle incentives to undermine ambitious plans while maintaining the appearance of support and friendship. Professional environments amplify these dynamics because advancement is explicitly zero-sum. Promotions, prime assignments, and leadership opportunities have limited availability. Colleagues who learn about your career ambitions early can position themselves as alternatives or create obstacles that prevent your success. The person who quietly builds relationships, develops skills, and positions themselves strategically before announcing their candidacy for advancement faces less organized opposition. Their colleagues have not had time to develop counter-strategies or alternative proposals. The element of surprise creates momentum that resistance cannot easily stop. This principle extends beyond individual advancement to business and organizational strategy. Companies that announce new product categories early face immediate competitive responses. Rivals begin developing similar offerings, suppliers adjust their positioning, and customers delay purchasing decisions while waiting for alternatives. The organization that develops products in secrecy and launches with full market presence eliminates these defensive reactions. Competitors must respond to established market facts rather than announced intentions. This provides crucial time advantages that often determine market success. Consider how this dynamic plays out in startup environments. Entrepreneurs who discuss their ideas extensively before developing minimum viable products often find similar concepts appearing in the market before they can execute. The information shared in networking events, pitch competitions, and casual conversations creates opportunities for faster-moving competitors. The founder who develops their concept quietly and launches with initial market validation faces less imitation and competitive pressure. They can establish market position before others recognize the opportunity's viability. Personal relationships operate through similar dynamics, though the mechanisms are more subtle. The individual who announces their intention to end a romantic relationship faces immediate attempts to change their mind, guilt induction, and promises of behavioral modification. These responses make the separation process more emotionally difficult and practically complicated. The person who quietly makes necessary preparations and announces their decision only when they are ready to implement it encounters less resistance. The other party has less time to develop counter-strategies or emotional manipulation tactics. The decision appears more final and inevitable, generating faster acceptance. This does not suggest that all relationships should end abruptly without warning. It illustrates how announced intentions create opportunities for others to influence outcomes in ways that may not serve the announcer's interests. The timing of information disclosure significantly affects the range of possible responses. Dating and relationship formation also demonstrate these principles. The person who announces their interest in someone to mutual friends often creates awkward dynamics that make natural relationship development more difficult. Friends feel compelled to provide advice, share information, or position themselves as intermediaries in ways that complicate the interaction. The individual who pursues romantic interests without announcing their intentions to third parties maintains more control over the pace and nature of relationship development. They can adjust their approach based on direct feedback rather than managing others' opinions about their romantic choices. Social media has created new ways for people to sabotage their own plans through premature announcement. Posting about new business ventures, lifestyle changes, or personal goals generates a public audience that monitors progress and judges outcomes. This external scrutiny often creates pressure that makes success more difficult. The psychological burden of public accountability frequently outweighs the motivational benefits of declared commitment. People modify their behavior to match their public statements rather than their actual circumstances. This leads to inefficient resource allocation and suboptimal decision-making throughout the implementation process. The individual who pursues objectives privately can adapt their approach based on results and changing circumstances. They can abandon unsuccessful strategies without public acknowledgement of failure. They can modify their goals based on new information without appearing inconsistent or uncommitted. This flexibility proves crucial when dealing with complex objectives that require iterative approaches. Business development, skill acquisition, and relationship building all benefit from the ability to adjust methods without explaining changes to an external audience. Financial planning demonstrates these principles clearly. People who announce major financial goals often face pressure to maintain expensive lifestyles that prevent accumulation. Friends and family members make consumption suggestions based on perceived earning capacity rather than actual savings objectives. The individual who quietly reduces expenses and increases savings avoids this social pressure. They can make decisions based on their financial objectives rather than others' expectations about their spending patterns. This typically results in faster wealth accumulation and greater financial flexibility. Real estate investment provides specific examples of how announced intentions create disadvantages. The person who discusses their plans to purchase investment property faces immediate input about market timing, location choices, and financing strategies. Much of this advice reflects others' risk tolerance rather than objective market analysis. The investor who researches markets privately and makes purchases without extensive consultation can focus on their own criteria and timeline. They avoid analysis paralysis created by conflicting opinions and can act quickly when opportunities arise. Investment strategies also benefit from discretion. Announcing specific investment plans creates opportunities for others to influence those decisions or position themselves to benefit from the information. Market conditions change rapidly, and public commitments to particular strategies reduce adaptability. Educational advancement operates through similar dynamics. Students who announce their intention to attend graduate school face questions about opportunity costs, debt implications, and career prospects. These discussions often emphasize negative aspects while minimizing potential benefits. The applicant who completes the process privately encounters less resistance and fewer distractions during preparation periods. They can focus resources on meeting admission requirements rather than defending their choices to skeptical audiences. Professional certification and skill development programs also demonstrate how announced learning objectives create unnecessary obstacles. The person who discusses their plan to obtain industry certifications faces questions about the value of credentials, the difficulty of examinations, and the time requirements involved. The professional who pursues certifications quietly can dedicate their energy to mastering the material rather than justifying their educational choices. They can present completed credentials as accomplished facts rather than defending aspirational goals. Career transitions particularly benefit from strategic silence. The employee who announces their intention to change industries faces immediate questions about their qualifications, market conditions, and the wisdom of leaving stable employment. These conversations create doubt and hesitation that can prevent action entirely. The professional who quietly develops new skills, builds relevant networks, and identifies opportunities before announcing their transition maintains control over the timing and circumstances of their career change. They can present their new direction as an accomplished fact rather than a risky aspiration. Geographic relocation decisions also illustrate these dynamics. The person who announces their plan to move to a new city faces immediate input about cost of living, job markets, social opportunities, and quality of life factors. Friends and family members often emphasize negative aspects of relocation while minimizing potential benefits. The individual who researches locations privately and makes decisions based on their own priorities avoids this negative input. They can focus on factors that matter to their situation rather than addressing others' concerns about their choices. Research and creative projects require extended periods of development before producing visible results. Announcing these projects early exposes them to premature judgment and external pressure to demonstrate progress. This can disrupt the natural development process and lead to suboptimal outcomes. The researcher who completes significant work before discussing it publicly can present results rather than defending methodology. The creative professional who develops projects in private can reveal finished work rather than explaining incomplete concepts. Artistic endeavors particularly benefit from privacy during development phases. Writers who discuss their book concepts extensively before completing manuscripts often find their enthusiasm diminished by others' reactions to incomplete ideas. The feedback received on partial concepts may not reflect how audiences will respond to finished works. The author who completes manuscripts before seeking extensive input maintains creative control over their development process. They can present finished work that demonstrates their vision rather than defending concepts that may be misunderstood when described incompletely. Health and fitness objectives particularly demonstrate how announced intentions create counterproductive social dynamics. People who declare dramatic lifestyle changes often receive advice about moderation, warnings about sustainability, and suggestions to lower their expectations. These responses reflect others' relationships with their own health choices, rather than objective assessment of what might be achievable. The person pursuing significant physical transformation privately can focus on the process rather than managing others' opinions about their methods or timeline. Dietary changes face similar resistance when announced publicly. The individual who declares their intention to adopt a restrictive eating plan faces questions about nutritional adequacy, social implications, and long-term sustainability. Friends and family members often emphasize the difficulty of maintaining dietary restrictions. The person who implements dietary changes quietly can focus on developing sustainable habits rather than defending their nutritional choices to skeptical audiences. They can adjust their approach based on results rather than others' theoretical concerns. The business world provides countless examples of how announced intentions create competitive disadvantages. Companies that announce expansion plans early give competitors time to establish presence in those markets. Organizations that discuss new strategic directions publicly allow rivals to develop counter-strategies. The most successful business leaders often implement significant changes before discussing them publicly. They present accomplished facts rather than future plans. This approach minimizes resistance and maximizes the impact of their strategic initiatives. Merger and acquisition activities demonstrate the strategic value of secrecy. Companies that announce their acquisition intentions early face increased competition for target organizations and higher purchase prices. The information creates bidding dynamics that work against the original acquirer's interests. The organization that identifies targets privately and negotiates quietly can complete transactions on more favorable terms. They avoid competitive bidding situations and maintain negotiation advantages throughout the process. Political movements also demonstrate these principles. Announced political ambitions create immediate opposition research, strategic positioning by rivals, and media scrutiny that can prevent success. The candidate who emerges with established support and clear messaging faces less organized resistance than the one who announces early and builds slowly. Campaign strategies benefit from privacy during development phases. Political operatives who discuss strategy publicly provide opponents with information that can be used to develop counter-strategies. The campaign that keeps its tactical approaches private maintains strategic advantages. Technology development particularly benefits from secrecy during crucial development phases. Products announced too early face competitive responses, regulatory attention, and consumer expectations that may not align with actual capabilities. The companies that reveal finished products rather than development plans typically achieve greater market impact. Software development projects often suffer from premature announcement. Companies that discuss features and timelines publicly create expectations that may not align with technical realities. Development challenges that emerge during implementation can make public commitments difficult to meet. The organization that develops products privately and announces them upon completion avoids these expectation management challenges. They can present finished capabilities rather than defending development timelines and feature specifications. Personal relationships require careful consideration of when to reveal intentions about significant changes. The person who announces their intention to relocate faces immediate attempts to dissuade them, guilt about abandoning local relationships, and pressure to consider alternative arrangements. The individual who makes necessary preparations quietly and presents relocation as an imminent reality encounters less resistance and emotional manipulation. Their decision appears more considered and final, generating faster acceptance from their social network. Academic and professional networking often rewards those who build relationships without announcing their strategic objectives. The person who clearly states their networking goals faces skepticism about their authenticity and resistance from those who prefer to maintain existing relationship dynamics. Family dynamics particularly demonstrate how announced changes threaten existing systems. Adult children who announce their intention to modify their relationship with family traditions, expectations, or obligations face immediate pressure to maintain established patterns. The family member who gradually implements changes without announcement allows others to adapt naturally to new realities. The transition occurs with less drama and resistance, ultimately preserving better relationships while achieving the desired behavioral changes. The principle extends to skill development and personal growth activities. Announcing intensive learning projects creates external pressure to demonstrate progress and justify time investments. This pressure often disrupts the learning process and leads to suboptimal outcomes. The person who develops skills privately can focus on mastery rather than performance. They can take the time necessary to build solid foundations without defending their methods or timeline to external observers. Religious and philosophical development also benefits from privacy during exploration phases. Announced spiritual or intellectual journeys face immediate input from others about appropriate paths, traditional approaches, and potential dangers of unconventional exploration. The individual who explores privately can follow their authentic interests without managing others' reactions to their spiritual or intellectual choices. They can develop genuine insights rather than defending their exploration process to skeptical observers. Understanding why revealing intentions weakens position changes how one approaches major life decisions. The impulse to share plans often stems from a desire for encouragement, accountability, or validation. These benefits typically pale compared to the strategic advantages of privacy. The most effective approach involves identifying whose support genuinely matters for implementation success, sharing information selectively with those individuals, and maintaining discretion with broader audiences until objectives are achieved. This does not suggest that all plans should remain completely secret. It recognizes that information timing significantly affects outcomes. Strategic communication involves revealing the right information to the right people at the right time to maximize the probability of success. The observer who understands these dynamics can identify when others are seeking premature validation for incomplete plans versus when they are sharing accomplished facts. This discrimination reveals much about others' strategic thinking and likelihood of following through on stated intentions. Most importantly, this understanding provides a framework for protecting one's own plans from unconscious sabotage, while positioning others' announced intentions appropriately within competitive dynamics. The silent strategist maintains multiple advantages: flexibility to adapt approaches based on results, protection from premature judgment and resistance, control over information timing and audience, and the ability to present outcomes rather than defending processes. These advantages compound over time, creating sustainable patterns of achievement that announced intentions rarely match.